Hospital.
She was admitted to the hospital for surgery. She was admitted to the hospital for surgery. The hospital has excellent facilities and staff. The hospital has excellent facilities and staff. They visited the hospital to see their friend. They visited the hospital to see their friend.
Doctor.
She consulted the doctor about her symptoms. She consulted the doctor about her symptoms. The doctor examined the patient thoroughly. The doctor examined the patient thoroughly. They need to see a doctor for a checkup. They need to see a doctor for a checkup.
Nurse.
The nurse checked her blood pressure. The nurse checked her blood pressure. She thanked the nurse for her care. She thanked the nurse for her care. The nurses work long shifts at the hospital. The nurses work long shifts at the hospital.
Patient.
The patient was recovering well after the operation. The patient was recovering well after the operation. She was a patient at the hospital for 2 weeks. She was a patient at the hospital for 2 weeks. The patients were waiting in the reception area. The patients were waiting in the reception area.
To feel.
She didn't feel well and went to see the doctor. She didn't feel well and went to see the doctor. He felt much better after taking the medication. He felt much better after taking the medication. They felt anxious about the test results. They felt anxious about the test results.
To hurt.
Her leg hurt after the fall. Her leg hurt after the fall. It hurt when the nurse gave the injection. It hurt when the nurse gave the injection. My head hurts and I feel dizzy. My head hurts and I feel dizzy.
To examine.
The doctor examined her thoroughly. The doctor examined her thoroughly. They examined the X-ray carefully. They examined the X-ray carefully. She was examined by several specialists. She was examined by several specialists.
To check.
The nurse checked her temperature every hour. The nurse checked her temperature every hour. They checked her blood pressure regularly. They checked her blood pressure regularly. The doctor checked the wound for signs of infection. The doctor checked the wound for signs of infection.
To visit.
She visited her friend in the hospital every day. She visited her friend in the hospital every day. They visited during the visiting hours. They visited during the visiting hours. We will visit the patient this afternoon. We will visit the patient this afternoon.
To recover.
She recovered quickly after the operation. She recovered quickly after the operation. He is recovering well from his illness. He is recovering well from his illness. They hoped she would recover soon. They hoped she would recover soon.
To heal.
The wound took several weeks to heal. The wound took several weeks to heal. Her broken bone is healing nicely. Her broken bone is healing nicely. Time will help the injury to heal. Time will help the injury to heal.
To take.
She needs to take her medication with food. She needs to take her medication with food. He took the tablets 3 times a day. He took the tablets 3 times a day. They forgot to take their medicine this morning. They forgot to take their medicine this morning.
To give.
The nurse gave her an injection. The nurse gave her an injection. They gave him painkillers for the pain. They gave him painkillers for the pain. The doctor gave her a prescription for antibiotics. The doctor gave her a prescription for antibiotics.
To wait.
She had to wait for 2 hours in the waiting room. She had to wait for 2 hours in the waiting room. They waited anxiously for the test results. They waited anxiously for the test results. We are waiting to see the doctor. We are waiting to see the doctor.
To call.
The nurse called her name when it was her turn. The nurse called her name when it was her turn. They called an ambulance when he collapsed. They called an ambulance when he collapsed. She called the hospital to check on her friend. She called the hospital to check on her friend.
To ask.
She asked the doctor about the side effects. She asked the doctor about the side effects. They asked at reception for directions. They asked at reception for directions. He asked if he could visit the patient. He asked if he could visit the patient.
To answer.
The doctor answered all her questions patiently. The doctor answered all her questions patiently. She answered the nurse's questions about her symptoms. She answered the nurse's questions about her symptoms. They answered the phone when the hospital called. They answered the phone when the hospital called.
To explain.
The doctor explained the procedure in detail. The doctor explained the procedure in detail. She explained her symptoms to the nurse. She explained her symptoms to the nurse. They explained the risks before the operation. They explained the risks before the operation.
To understand.
She didn't understand the medical terminology. She didn't understand the medical terminology. They understood the importance of taking the medication. They understood the importance of taking the medication. He understood the doctor's instructions clearly. He understood the doctor's instructions clearly.
To worry.
She worried about the test results. She worried about the test results. They worried when she didn't improve quickly. They worried when she didn't improve quickly. Don't worry, everything will be fine. Don't worry, everything will be fine.
To help.
The nurse helped her get out of bed. The nurse helped her get out of bed. They helped him walk to the bathroom. They helped him walk to the bathroom. The medication helped to reduce the pain. The medication helped to reduce the pain.
To admit.
They decided to admit her to the hospital. They decided to admit her to the hospital. She was admitted for observation. She was admitted for observation. The patient was admitted through the emergency room. The patient was admitted through the emergency room.
To discharge.
The doctor decided to discharge her the next day. The doctor decided to discharge her the next day. They discharged him once he was stable. They discharged him once he was stable. She was discharged with instructions to rest. She was discharged with instructions to rest.
To operate.
The surgeon will operate tomorrow morning. The surgeon will operate tomorrow morning. They operated on her leg to repair the fracture. They operated on her leg to repair the fracture. The doctor decided to operate immediately. The doctor decided to operate immediately.
To prescribe.
The doctor prescribed antibiotics for the infection. The doctor prescribed antibiotics for the infection. She prescribed painkillers to manage the pain. She prescribed painkillers to manage the pain. They prescribed rest and plenty of fluids. They prescribed rest and plenty of fluids.
To monitor.
The nurses monitored her condition closely. The nurses monitored her condition closely. They monitored his heart rate throughout the night. They monitored his heart rate throughout the night. The machine monitored her vital signs automatically. The machine monitored her vital signs automatically.
To treat.
The doctor will treat the infection with antibiotics. The doctor will treat the infection with antibiotics. They treated her for dehydration. They treated her for dehydration. She was treated in the emergency room. She was treated in the emergency room.
To diagnose.
The doctor diagnosed her condition after the tests. The doctor diagnosed her condition after the tests. They diagnosed it as a broken arm. They diagnosed it as a broken arm. It took several weeks to diagnose the problem. It took several weeks to diagnose the problem.
To sign.
She had to sign the consent form before surgery. She had to sign the consent form before surgery. They signed the admission forms at reception. They signed the admission forms at reception. He signed the discharge papers before leaving. He signed the discharge papers before leaving.
To arrive.
She arrived at the hospital early for her appointment. She arrived at the hospital early for her appointment. The ambulance arrived quickly after the call. The ambulance arrived quickly after the call. They arrived during visiting hours to see the patient. They arrived during visiting hours to see the patient.
To leave.
She was allowed to leave the hospital after a week. She was allowed to leave the hospital after a week. They left the hospital feeling much better. They left the hospital feeling much better. He had to leave early because of work. He had to leave early because of work.
To stay.
She had to stay in hospital for 3 days. She had to stay in hospital for 3 days. They stayed with her throughout the night. They stayed with her throughout the night. He stayed in the waiting room until visiting hours. He stayed in the waiting room until visiting hours.
To lie.
She had to lie still during the scan. She had to lie still during the scan. He lay in bed recovering from the operation. He lay in bed recovering from the operation. They asked her to lie down on the examination table. They asked her to lie down on the examination table.
To sit.
She sat in the waiting room for an hour. She sat in the waiting room for an hour. They sat by the patient's bedside. They sat by the patient's bedside. He sat up in bed to eat his meal. He sat up in bed to eat his meal.
To stand.
She couldn't stand for long after the operation. She couldn't stand for long after the operation. They stood in the corridor waiting for news. They stood in the corridor waiting for news. He managed to stand up with help from the nurse. He managed to stand up with help from the nurse.
To walk.
She was able to walk again after the physiotherapy. She was able to walk again after the physiotherapy. They walked down the corridor to the ward. They walked down the corridor to the ward. He walked slowly with the help of a crutch. He walked slowly with the help of a crutch.
To sleep.
She found it difficult to sleep in the hospital. She found it difficult to sleep in the hospital. They gave her medication to help her sleep. They gave her medication to help her sleep. He slept peacefully after the operation. He slept peacefully after the operation.
To wake up.
She woke up in the recovery room after surgery. She woke up in the recovery room after surgery. He woke up early every morning in hospital. He woke up early every morning in hospital. They woke up when the nurse came to check on them. They woke up when the nurse came to check on them.
To eat.
She wasn't allowed to eat before the operation. She wasn't allowed to eat before the operation. They ate their meals in the hospital cafeteria. They ate their meals in the hospital cafeteria. He couldn't eat solid food after the surgery. He couldn't eat solid food after the surgery.
To drink.
She was told to drink plenty of water. She was told to drink plenty of water. They couldn't drink anything before the test. They couldn't drink anything before the test. He drank the medication mixed with water. He drank the medication mixed with water.
To breathe.
She found it difficult to breathe after the accident. She found it difficult to breathe after the accident. They asked her to breathe deeply during the examination. They asked her to breathe deeply during the examination. He breathed normally after the treatment. He breathed normally after the treatment.
To cough.
She couldn't stop coughing and went to see the doctor. She couldn't stop coughing and went to see the doctor. He coughed throughout the night. He coughed throughout the night. The medication helped to reduce the coughing. The medication helped to reduce the coughing.
To sneeze.
She couldn't stop sneezing because of her allergy. She couldn't stop sneezing because of her allergy. He sneezed several times in a row. He sneezed several times in a row. They covered their mouth when they sneezed. They covered their mouth when they sneezed.
To vomit.
She felt nauseous and vomited after the medication. She felt nauseous and vomited after the medication. He vomited several times during the night. He vomited several times during the night. They gave her medication to prevent vomiting. They gave her medication to prevent vomiting.
Ill.
She felt ill and went to see the doctor. She felt ill and went to see the doctor. He was too ill to leave the hospital. He was too ill to leave the hospital. They visited their ill friend in hospital. They visited their ill friend in hospital.
Sick.
She felt sick after the operation. She felt sick after the operation. He was sick in bed with the flu. He was sick in bed with the flu. They looked after the sick patient. They looked after the sick patient.
Better.
She felt much better after taking the medication. She felt much better after taking the medication. He is getting better every day. He is getting better every day. They hoped she would get better soon. They hoped she would get better soon.
Worse.
Her condition got worse overnight. Her condition got worse overnight. He felt worse after stopping the medication. He felt worse after stopping the medication. They were worried that she was getting worse. They were worried that she was getting worse.
Fever.
She had a high fever and was admitted to hospital. She had a high fever and was admitted to hospital. The fever came down after taking paracetamol. The fever came down after taking paracetamol. They monitored her fever throughout the day. They monitored her fever throughout the day.
Temperature.
The nurse took her temperature every 4 hours. The nurse took her temperature every 4 hours. Her temperature was normal after the treatment. Her temperature was normal after the treatment. They checked his temperature regularly. They checked his temperature regularly.
Wound.
The nurse cleaned the wound carefully. The nurse cleaned the wound carefully. The wound was healing well. The wound was healing well. They dressed the wound with a clean bandage. They dressed the wound with a clean bandage.
Injury.
She sustained a serious injury in the accident. She sustained a serious injury in the accident. The injury required immediate medical attention. The injury required immediate medical attention. They treated the injury in the emergency room. They treated the injury in the emergency room.
Illness.
She was diagnosed with a serious illness. She was diagnosed with a serious illness. The illness required long-term treatment. The illness required long-term treatment. They recovered from the illness after several weeks. They recovered from the illness after several weeks.
Condition.
Her condition improved significantly after treatment. Her condition improved significantly after treatment. The doctor explained her medical condition. The doctor explained her medical condition. They monitored his condition closely. They monitored his condition closely.
Ambulance.
They called an ambulance when he collapsed. They called an ambulance when he collapsed. The ambulance arrived quickly at the scene. The ambulance arrived quickly at the scene. She was taken to hospital in an ambulance. She was taken to hospital in an ambulance.
Corridor.
She walked down the corridor to the ward. She walked down the corridor to the ward. The corridor was quiet at night. The corridor was quiet at night. They waited in the corridor outside the operating theatre. They waited in the corridor outside the operating theatre.
Lift.
She took the lift to the third floor. She took the lift to the third floor. The lift was out of order, so they used the stairs. The lift was out of order, so they used the stairs. They waited for the lift to arrive. They waited for the lift to arrive.
Stairs.
She walked up the stairs to the second floor. She walked up the stairs to the second floor. The stairs were steep and difficult to climb. The stairs were steep and difficult to climb. They used the stairs because the lift was broken. They used the stairs because the lift was broken.
Door.
She knocked on the door before entering. She knocked on the door before entering. The door to the ward was kept closed. The door to the ward was kept closed. They opened the door quietly so as not to disturb the patients. They opened the door quietly so as not to disturb the patients.
Window.
She looked out of the window at the hospital garden. She looked out of the window at the hospital garden. The window was open to let in fresh air. The window was open to let in fresh air. They closed the window because it was cold. They closed the window because it was cold.
Form.
She filled in the admission form at reception. She filled in the admission form at reception. The form asked for personal and medical information. The form asked for personal and medical information. They signed the consent form before the operation. They signed the consent form before the operation.
Paper.
She received her discharge papers from the hospital. She received her discharge papers from the hospital. The papers contained important medical information. The papers contained important medical information. They filled in all the necessary papers. They filled in all the necessary papers.
Information.
She asked for information about visiting hours. She asked for information about visiting hours. The information desk was located in reception. The information desk was located in reception. They provided all the necessary information. They provided all the necessary information.
Ward.
She was on the children's ward. She was on the children's ward. The ward was quiet during visiting hours. The ward was quiet during visiting hours. They walked down the corridor to the ward. They walked down the corridor to the ward.
Emergency room.
She was taken to the emergency room after the accident. She was taken to the emergency room after the accident. The emergency room was busy with patients. The emergency room was busy with patients. They waited in the emergency room for several hours. They waited in the emergency room for several hours.
Operating theatre.
The surgery took place in the operating theatre. The surgery took place in the operating theatre. The operating theatre was sterile and well equipped. The operating theatre was sterile and well equipped. They prepared the operating theatre for the procedure. They prepared the operating theatre for the procedure.
Appointment.
She made an appointment to see the specialist. She made an appointment to see the specialist. The appointment was scheduled for next Tuesday. The appointment was scheduled for next Tuesday. They arrived early for their appointment. They arrived early for their appointment.
Reception.
She checked in at the reception desk. She checked in at the reception desk. The reception area was busy with people waiting. The reception area was busy with people waiting. They asked at reception for directions to the ward. They asked at reception for directions to the ward.
Waiting room.
She sat in the waiting room until her name was called. She sat in the waiting room until her name was called. The waiting room had comfortable chairs and magazines. The waiting room had comfortable chairs and magazines. They waited patiently in the waiting room. They waited patiently in the waiting room.
Surgery.
She underwent surgery to remove her appendix. She underwent surgery to remove her appendix. The surgery was successful and she recovered quickly. The surgery was successful and she recovered quickly. They discussed the risks of the surgery beforehand. They discussed the risks of the surgery beforehand.
Anaesthesia.
She was given anesthesia before the operation. She was given anesthesia before the operation. The anesthesia made her fall asleep quickly. The anesthesia made her fall asleep quickly. They discussed the type of anesthesia with the anaesthetist. They discussed the type of anesthesia with the anaesthetist.
Prescription.
The doctor wrote her a prescription for antibiotics. The doctor wrote her a prescription for antibiotics. She took the prescription to the pharmacy. She took the prescription to the pharmacy. They collected the medication using the prescription. They collected the medication using the prescription.
Medication.
She took her medication 3 times a day. She took her medication 3 times a day. The medication helped to reduce the pain. The medication helped to reduce the pain. They stored the medication in a cool, dry place. They stored the medication in a cool, dry place.
Pain.
She experienced severe pain after the operation. She experienced severe pain after the operation. The pain gradually subsided over the following days. The pain gradually subsided over the following days. They gave her medication to manage the pain. They gave her medication to manage the pain.
Symptom.
She described her symptoms to the doctor. She described her symptoms to the doctor. The symptoms included fever and fatigue. The symptoms included fever and fatigue. They monitored her symptoms closely. They monitored her symptoms closely.
Diagnosis.
The doctor gave her a diagnosis after the tests. The doctor gave her a diagnosis after the tests. The diagnosis confirmed their suspicions. The diagnosis confirmed their suspicions. They waited anxiously for the diagnosis. They waited anxiously for the diagnosis.
Treatment.
She received treatment for her condition. She received treatment for her condition. The treatment was effective and she improved quickly. The treatment was effective and she improved quickly. They discussed the best treatment options. They discussed the best treatment options.
Test.
She had a blood test to check her levels. She had a blood test to check her levels. The test results came back normal. The test results came back normal. They ordered several tests to determine the cause. They ordered several tests to determine the cause.
X-ray.
She had an X-ray of her chest. She had an X-ray of her chest. The X-ray showed a fracture in her arm. The X-ray showed a fracture in her arm. They took an X-ray to check for any damage. They took an X-ray to check for any damage.
Scan.
She had a CT scan to examine her brain. She had a CT scan to examine her brain. The scan revealed no abnormalities. The scan revealed no abnormalities. They scheduled an MRI scan for the following week. They scheduled an MRI scan for the following week.
Stethoscope.
The doctor used a stethoscope to listen to her heart. The doctor used a stethoscope to listen to her heart. The stethoscope helped to detect a murmur. The stethoscope helped to detect a murmur. They placed the stethoscope on her chest. They placed the stethoscope on her chest.
Thermometer.
The nurse took her temperature with a thermometer. The nurse took her temperature with a thermometer. The thermometer showed she had a fever. The thermometer showed she had a fever. They used a digital thermometer for accuracy. They used a digital thermometer for accuracy.
Blood pressure.
The nurse checked her blood pressure. The nurse checked her blood pressure. Her blood pressure was slightly high. Her blood pressure was slightly high. They monitored her blood pressure regularly. They monitored her blood pressure regularly.
Bandage.
The nurse applied a bandage to the wound. The nurse applied a bandage to the wound. The bandage needed to be changed daily. The bandage needed to be changed daily. They wrapped the bandage tightly around her arm. They wrapped the bandage tightly around her arm.
Injection.
She received an injection to prevent infection. She received an injection to prevent infection. The injection was given in her arm. The injection was given in her arm. They gave her a painkilling injection. They gave her a painkilling injection.
Drip.
She was put on a drip to receive fluids. She was put on a drip to receive fluids. The drip was attached to her arm. The drip was attached to her arm. They monitored the drip throughout the day. They monitored the drip throughout the day.
Wheelchair.
She used a wheelchair to get around the hospital. She used a wheelchair to get around the hospital. The wheelchair was provided by the hospital. The wheelchair was provided by the hospital. They pushed her in the wheelchair to the ward. They pushed her in the wheelchair to the ward.
Stretcher.
She was carried on a stretcher to the ambulance. She was carried on a stretcher to the ambulance. The stretcher was wheeled into the emergency room. The stretcher was wheeled into the emergency room. They lifted her onto the stretcher carefully. They lifted her onto the stretcher carefully.
Bed.
She lay in the hospital bed recovering. She lay in the hospital bed recovering. The bed could be adjusted to different positions. The bed could be adjusted to different positions. They changed the sheets on the bed daily. They changed the sheets on the bed daily.
Visiting hours.
She waited until visiting hours to see her friend. She waited until visiting hours to see her friend. The visiting hours were from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. The visiting hours were from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. They arrived during visiting hours to visit the patient. They arrived during visiting hours to visit the patient.
Discharge.
She received her discharge papers from the hospital. She received her discharge papers from the hospital. The discharge was scheduled for the following day. The discharge was scheduled for the following day. They prepared for her discharge from the hospital. They prepared for her discharge from the hospital.
Specialist.
She was referred to a specialist for further treatment. She was referred to a specialist for further treatment. The specialist had extensive experience in the field. The specialist had extensive experience in the field. They consulted a heart specialist about the condition. They consulted a heart specialist about the condition.
Surgeon.
The surgeon performed the operation successfully. The surgeon performed the operation successfully. She met with the surgeon before the procedure. She met with the surgeon before the procedure. They trusted the surgeon's expertise. They trusted the surgeon's expertise.
Anaesthetist.
The anaesthetist explained the anesthesia process. The anaesthetist explained the anesthesia process. She spoke with the anaesthetist before surgery. She spoke with the anaesthetist before surgery. The anaesthetist monitored her during the operation. The anaesthetist monitored her during the operation.
Consultant.
She was seen by a senior consultant. She was seen by a senior consultant. The consultant reviewed her case carefully. The consultant reviewed her case carefully. They arranged an appointment with the consultant. They arranged an appointment with the consultant.
Pharmacy.
She collected her medication from the pharmacy. She collected her medication from the pharmacy. The pharmacy was located on the ground floor. The pharmacy was located on the ground floor. They took the prescription to the pharmacy. They took the prescription to the pharmacy.
Cafeteria.
She had lunch in the hospital cafeteria. She had lunch in the hospital cafeteria. The cafeteria served hot meals and snacks. The cafeteria served hot meals and snacks. They met in the cafeteria for a coffee. They met in the cafeteria for a coffee.
Visitor.
She was a regular visitor to the hospital. She was a regular visitor to the hospital. The visitors brought flowers and cards. The visitors brought flowers and cards. They signed in as visitors at reception. They signed in as visitors at reception.
Admission.
She went through the admission process at reception. She went through the admission process at reception. The admission took longer than expected. The admission took longer than expected. They completed the admission forms. They completed the admission forms.
Medical record.
The doctor reviewed her medical record. The doctor reviewed her medical record. Her medical record contained all previous treatments. Her medical record contained all previous treatments. They updated her medical record with new information. They updated her medical record with new information.
Consent form.
She signed the consent form before the operation. She signed the consent form before the operation. The consent form explained the risks involved. The consent form explained the risks involved. They read the consent form carefully before signing. They read the consent form carefully before signing.
Visitor pass.
She collected a visitor pass from reception. She collected a visitor pass from reception. The visitor pass allowed access to the ward. The visitor pass allowed access to the ward. They wore the visitor pass visibly at all times. They wore the visitor pass visibly at all times.
Intensive care unit.
She was moved to the intensive care unit after surgery. She was moved to the intensive care unit after surgery. The intensive care unit had round-the-clock monitoring. The intensive care unit had round-the-clock monitoring. They visited her in the intensive care unit. They visited her in the intensive care unit.
Maternity ward.
She was on the maternity ward after giving birth. She was on the maternity ward after giving birth. The maternity ward was quiet and peaceful. The maternity ward was quiet and peaceful. They visited the new mother on the maternity ward. They visited the new mother on the maternity ward.
Pediatric ward.
The child was admitted to the pediatric ward. The child was admitted to the pediatric ward. The pediatric ward was decorated with bright colors. The pediatric ward was decorated with bright colors. They specialized in treating children on the pediatric ward. They specialized in treating children on the pediatric ward.
Bonus examples.
She had many questions for the doctor. She had many questions for the doctor. The nurse answered all her questions patiently. The nurse answered all her questions patiently. They asked questions about the treatment options. They asked questions about the treatment options. She waited for an answer from the doctor. She waited for an answer from the doctor. The answer to her question was reassuring. The answer to her question was reassuring. They received an answer about the test results. They received an answer about the test results. She spent a long time in the waiting room. She spent a long time in the waiting room. The time for the appointment was 3 p.m. The time for the appointment was 3 p.m. They arrived on time for their appointment. They arrived on time for their appointment. She spent 3 days in hospital. She spent 3 days in hospital. The day of the operation was finally here. The day of the operation was finally here. They visited her every day during her stay. They visited her every day during her stay. She had trouble sleeping at night in hospital. She had trouble sleeping at night in hospital. The night shift nurses were very attentive. The night shift nurses were very attentive. They stayed with her throughout the night. They stayed with her throughout the night. The operation was scheduled for the morning. The operation was scheduled for the morning. She felt better in the morning after a good night's sleep. She felt better in the morning after a good night's sleep. They visited her early in the morning. They visited her early in the morning. Her appointment was in the afternoon. Her appointment was in the afternoon. They visited during the afternoon visiting hours. They visited during the afternoon visiting hours. She was discharged in the afternoon. She was discharged in the afternoon. The visiting hours ended in the evening. The visiting hours ended in the evening. She felt tired in the evening after the long day. She felt tired in the evening after the long day. They left the hospital in the evening. They left the hospital in the evening. She was in hospital for a week. She was in hospital for a week. The week passed slowly while she recovered. The week passed slowly while she recovered. They visited her several times during the week. They visited her several times during the week. She waited for an hour in the waiting room. She waited for an hour in the waiting room. The visiting hours were from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. The visiting hours were from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. They checked on her every hour. They checked on her every hour. She arrived 10 minutes early for her appointment. She arrived 10 minutes early for her appointment. The operation took several minutes to complete. The operation took several minutes to complete. They waited a few minutes before being called. They waited a few minutes before being called. She is feeling much better now. She is feeling much better now. They are now ready to discharge her. They are now ready to discharge her. We can see the doctor now. We can see the doctor now. She is being discharged today. She is being discharged today. They visited her today during visiting hours. They visited her today during visiting hours. The test results will be available today. The test results will be available today. The operation is scheduled for tomorrow. The operation is scheduled for tomorrow. She will see the specialist tomorrow. She will see the specialist tomorrow. They are planning to visit tomorrow. They are planning to visit tomorrow. She was admitted to hospital yesterday. She was admitted to hospital yesterday. They visited her yesterday afternoon. They visited her yesterday afternoon. The test was done yesterday. The test was done yesterday. She has been here for 3 days. She has been here for 3 days. They are here to visit the patient. They are here to visit the patient. The doctor will see you here in a moment. The doctor will see you here in a moment. The ward is over there on the left. The ward is over there on the left. They waited there for 2 hours. They waited there for 2 hours. The pharmacy is there on the ground floor. The pharmacy is there on the ground floor. This hospital has excellent facilities. This hospital has excellent facilities. This medication should help with the pain. This medication should help with the pain. This is the 3rd floor where the wards are. This is the 3rd floor where the wards are. That test will determine the diagnosis. That test will determine the diagnosis. That ward is for children. That ward is for children. That doctor is very experienced. That doctor is very experienced. What are your symptoms? What are your symptoms? What time is the appointment? What time is the appointment? What medication are you taking? What medication are you taking? When will the test results be ready? When will the test results be ready? When did the pain start? When did the pain start? When can she be discharged? When can she be discharged? Where is the emergency room? Where is the emergency room? Where can I find the pharmacy? Where can I find the pharmacy? Where is the patient's room? Where is the patient's room? Who is the doctor in charge? Who is the doctor in charge? Who can I speak to about the treatment? Who can I speak to about the treatment? Who is visiting the patient? Who is visiting the patient? Why do I need this test? Why do I need this test? Why was she admitted to hospital? Why was she admitted to hospital? Why can't I eat before the operation? Why can't I eat before the operation? How are you feeling today? How are you feeling today? How long will the operation take? How long will the operation take? How often should I take this medication? How often should I take this medication? How much does the treatment cost? How much does the treatment cost? How much medication should I take? How much medication should I take? How much time will it take? How much time will it take? How many days will she be in hospital? How many days will she be in hospital? How many tablets should I take? How many tablets should I take? How many visitors are allowed? How many visitors are allowed? Yes, I understand the procedure. Yes, I understand the procedure. Yes, I have taken my medication. Yes, I have taken my medication. Yes, I would like to see the doctor. Yes, I would like to see the doctor. No, I haven't eaten anything since yesterday. No, I haven't eaten anything since yesterday. No, I don't have any allergies. No, I don't have any allergies. No, I haven't taken any medication today. No, I haven't taken any medication today. Could you help me, please? Could you help me, please? Please take a seat in the waiting room. Please take a seat in the waiting room. Please fill in this form. Please fill in this form. Thank you for your help. Thank you for your help. Thank you for explaining everything. Thank you for explaining everything. Thank you very much for the care. Thank you very much for the care. Sorry, I didn't understand. Could you repeat that? Sorry, I didn't understand. Could you repeat that? I'm sorry to hear you're not feeling well. I'm sorry to hear you're not feeling well. Sorry for the delay. Sorry for the delay. Excuse me, where is the emergency room? Excuse me, where is the emergency room? Excuse me, could you help me find the ward? Excuse me, could you help me find the ward? Excuse me, I need to speak to a nurse. Excuse me, I need to speak to a nurse. Hello, I have an appointment with Dr. Smith. Hello, I have an appointment with Dr. Smith. Hello, how can I help you? Hello, how can I help you? Hello, I'm here to visit a patient. Hello, I'm here to visit a patient. Goodbye, I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye, I'll see you tomorrow. She said goodbye to the nurses before leaving. She said goodbye to the nurses before leaving. Goodbye, take care and get well soon. Goodbye, take care and get well soon. Good morning, I have an appointment at 10 a.m. Good morning, I have an appointment at 10 a.m. Good morning, how are you feeling today? Good morning, how are you feeling today? Good morning, the doctor will see you shortly. Good morning, the doctor will see you shortly. Good afternoon, I'm here for my appointment. Good afternoon, I'm here for my appointment. Good afternoon, visiting hours have started. Good afternoon, visiting hours have started. Good afternoon, how can I assist you? Good afternoon, how can I assist you? Good evening, I'm visiting a patient. Good evening, I'm visiting a patient. Good evening, the reception is closing soon. Good evening, the reception is closing soon. Good evening, I hope you're feeling better. Good evening, I hope you're feeling better. Good night, sleep well. Good night, sleep well. She said good night to the nurses. She said good night to the nurses. Good night, see you in the morning. Good night, see you in the morning. I don't feel well. I don't feel well. I have an appointment with the doctor. I have an appointment with the doctor. I need to see a nurse. I need to see a nurse. You need to take this medication 3 times a day. You need to take this medication 3 times a day. You should rest and drink plenty of water. You should rest and drink plenty of water. You can visit during the visiting hours. You can visit during the visiting hours. He is recovering well after the operation. He is recovering well after the operation. He was admitted to hospital yesterday. He was admitted to hospital yesterday. He needs to see a specialist. He needs to see a specialist. She is feeling much better today. She is feeling much better today. She will be discharged tomorrow. She will be discharged tomorrow. She visited her friend in hospital. She visited her friend in hospital. We are here to visit a patient. We are here to visit a patient. We waited in the waiting room for an hour. We waited in the waiting room for an hour. We hope she gets better soon. We hope she gets better soon. They visited the patient every day. They visited the patient every day. They are the nurses on this ward. They are the nurses on this ward. They will operate tomorrow morning. They will operate tomorrow morning. My appointment is at 3 p.m. My appointment is at 3 p.m. My leg hurts. My leg hurts. My medication needs to be taken with food. My medication needs to be taken with food. Your test results are ready. Your test results are ready. Your appointment is tomorrow. Your appointment is tomorrow. Your medication is at the pharmacy. Your medication is at the pharmacy. His condition improved significantly. His condition improved significantly. His operation was successful. His operation was successful. His recovery is going well. His recovery is going well. Her temperature is normal now. Her temperature is normal now. Her wound is healing well. Her wound is healing well. Her medication needs to be taken twice a day. Her medication needs to be taken twice a day. Our friend is in hospital. Our friend is in hospital. Our appointment is next week. Our appointment is next week. Our visit was during visiting hours. Our visit was during visiting hours. Their patient is recovering well. Their patient is recovering well. Their test results came back normal. Their test results came back normal. Their medication is ready at the pharmacy. Their medication is ready at the pharmacy. This hospital has excellent facilities. This hospital has excellent facilities. This medication should help with the pain. This medication should help with the pain. This is the third floor where the wards are. This is the third floor where the wards are. That test will determine the diagnosis. That test will determine the diagnosis. That ward is for children. That ward is for children. That doctor is very experienced. That doctor is very experienced. These are the test results. These are the test results. These medications need to be taken together. These medications need to be taken together. These are the visiting hours. These are the visiting hours. Those are the discharge papers. Those are the discharge papers. Those symptoms are concerning. Those symptoms are concerning. Those are the consent forms you need to sign. Those are the consent forms you need to sign. She has her appointment with the doctor. She has her appointment with the doctor. He needs a blood test. He needs a blood test. They called an ambulance. They called an ambulance. She had an operation last week. She had an operation last week. He needs an X-ray of his chest. He needs an X-ray of his chest. They scheduled an appointment for tomorrow. They scheduled an appointment for tomorrow. The doctor will see you now. The doctor will see you now. The hospital is very busy today. The hospital is very busy today. The test results are ready. The test results are ready. She has some pain in her leg. She has some pain in her leg. They gave her some medication for the pain. They gave her some medication for the pain. Some patients are allowed to walk around. Some patients are allowed to walk around. Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions? She doesn't have any allergies. She doesn't have any allergies. They didn't have any information about the delay. They didn't have any information about the delay. Many patients were waiting in the emergency room. Many patients were waiting in the emergency room. She had many questions for the doctor. She had many questions for the doctor. Many visitors came during the visiting hours. Many visitors came during the visiting hours. She doesn't have much pain now. She doesn't have much pain now. There isn't much time before the operation. There isn't much time before the operation. Much of the treatment was successful. Much of the treatment was successful. She needs more rest. She needs more rest. They want more information about the treatment. They want more information about the treatment. He is feeling more better today. He is feeling more better today. Most patients recover quickly. Most patients recover quickly. Most of the treatment was successful. Most of the treatment was successful. Most visiting hours are in the afternoon. Most visiting hours are in the afternoon. There were few people in the waiting room. There were few people in the waiting room. She had few symptoms after the operation. She had few symptoms after the operation. Few visitors came during the morning. Few visitors came during the morning. She has little pain now. She has little pain now. There is little time before the appointment. There is little time before the appointment. Little progress was made in her recovery. Little progress was made in her recovery. All the test results are normal. All the test results are normal. All patients need to rest after surgery. All patients need to rest after surgery. All the medication needs to be taken. All the medication needs to be taken. She takes her medication every day. She takes her medication every day. Every patient needs to be examined. Every patient needs to be examined. They visit every week. They visit every week. Each patient has their own room. Each patient has their own room. Each medication has different side effects. Each medication has different side effects. They checked each patient individually. They checked each patient individually. Both patients are recovering well. Both patients are recovering well. Both tests came back normal. Both tests came back normal. Both doctors agreed on the treatment. Both doctors agreed on the treatment. You can take either medication for the pain. You can take either medication for the pain. Either doctor can see you today. Either doctor can see you today. She doesn't like hospitals, and I don't either. She doesn't like hospitals, and I don't either. Neither test showed any problems. Neither test showed any problems. Neither doctor was available. Neither doctor was available. She doesn't like injections, and neither do I. She doesn't like injections, and neither do I. She needs to see other specialists. She needs to see other specialists. The other patient is in the next room. The other patient is in the next room. They tried other treatments before this one. They tried other treatments before this one. She needs another test to confirm the diagnosis. She needs another test to confirm the diagnosis. They scheduled another appointment for next week. They scheduled another appointment for next week. He will see another doctor for a second opinion. He will see another doctor for a second opinion. She had never experienced such pain before. She had never experienced such pain before. Such symptoms require immediate attention. Such symptoms require immediate attention. They had never seen such a quick recovery. They had never seen such a quick recovery. She has the same symptoms as before. She has the same symptoms as before. They are in the same ward. They are in the same ward. The same doctor treated both patients. The same doctor treated both patients. She has different symptoms now. She has different symptoms now. They tried a different treatment approach. They tried a different treatment approach. Different patients have different needs. Different patients have different needs. She feels like she is getting better. She feels like she is getting better. The pain feels like a sharp stabbing. The pain feels like a sharp stabbing. I don't like hospitals, but I have to be here. I don't like hospitals, but I have to be here. She is recovering as expected. She is recovering as expected. The pain is not as bad as yesterday. The pain is not as bad as yesterday. As a patient, she has certain rights. As a patient, she has certain rights. She feels better than yesterday. She feels better than yesterday. The operation took longer than expected. The operation took longer than expected. He is recovering faster than the other patients. He is recovering faster than the other patients. She was so tired after the operation. She was so tired after the operation. The pain was so severe that she couldn't sleep. The pain was so severe that she couldn't sleep. So, you need to take this medication 3 times a day. So, you need to take this medication 3 times a day. She is feeling better, too. She is feeling better, too. The pain is too much to bear. The pain is too much to bear. They visited her, too. They visited her, too. She is feeling very well today. She is feeling very well today. The operation was very successful. The operation was very successful. They are very experienced doctors. They are very experienced doctors. She is feeling quite better now. She is feeling quite better now. The waiting room was quite busy. The waiting room was quite busy. They were quite worried about her condition. They were quite worried about her condition. She is feeling rather tired after the operation. She is feeling rather tired after the operation. The pain is rather severe. The pain is rather severe. They were rather concerned about the symptoms. They were rather concerned about the symptoms. She is really feeling much better. She is really feeling much better. The medication really helped with the pain. The medication really helped with the pain. They are really grateful for the care. They are really grateful for the care. She is almost ready to be discharged. She is almost ready to be discharged. The operation took almost 3 hours. The operation took almost 3 hours. They waited for almost 2 hours. They waited for almost 2 hours. She has had enough rest now. She has had enough rest now. There isn't enough time before the appointment. There isn't enough time before the appointment. They have enough medication for the week. They have enough medication for the week. She was only in hospital for 2 days. She was only in hospital for 2 days. Only 2 visitors are allowed at a time. Only 2 visitors are allowed at a time. They can only visit during visiting hours. They can only visit during visiting hours. She just arrived at the hospital. She just arrived at the hospital. Just wait here for a moment. Just wait here for a moment. The doctor will see you just now. The doctor will see you just now. She is still in hospital. She is still in hospital. They are still waiting for the test results. They are still waiting for the test results. He is still recovering from the operation. He is still recovering from the operation. She has already taken her medication. She has already taken her medication. They have already seen the doctor. They have already seen the doctor. The test results are already available. The test results are already available. She hasn't been discharged yet. She hasn't been discharged yet.